Hello everyone, my name is Corbin and this is Plant Basics. In this episode I'm going to take you through a detailed care guide on how to care for your Anthurium Anthurium. Anthuriums make a beautiful indoor plant and they produce these beautiful long-lasting flowers which just go on for months and months and months. The key to have these beautiful flowers in your Anthurium is to grow them in an area where they get lots of light throughout the year. Anthuriums love light, and in order to produce these flowers, they really need it. So the best place for you to put your Anthurium is somewhere where it will get bright filtered light, but not direct sunlight, because direct sunlight can burn the leaves of your plant. Generally, early morning or late afternoon sun is fine, but try to steer clear of hot, direct afternoon sun. If you grow your Anthurium in diminished light, you'll often find that your plants will not flower as well. You'll also see a elongation of the petioles known as etiolation, which is where the petioles stretch towards the light. It's also worth noting that plants grown in lower light will also be more susceptible to pests because the overall health of your plant will be compromised by not being in ideal conditions. It's almost the same as with human beings or other animals. If your immune system is compromised, you are more susceptible to diseases or bacteria around you. And if you grow your Anthurium in nice, bright, indirect light, you will see a constant stream of beautiful flowers. You want to keep your Anthurium constantly moist, perhaps allowing the top inch of soil to dry out slightly in between waterings, but you don't want your plant to stand in any water. So always make sure that you empty out your cash bowl or your drip tray after you water your plant if you've noticed that any water has collected in the bottom. On the other extreme, you also don't want your plant to be drought stressed for too long because this can also negatively impact the health of your plant. I generally aim to water my plant about once a week in summer and once every 2 weeks or once every week and a half in winter when temperatures are naturally lower. But one thing to keep in mind here is that if you live in a colder climate and you have artificial heating, that will impact the water evaporation rates from your pot. So you might want to just keep a close eye on how fast your this soil of your plant is drying out with artificial heat sources. And over time, you get a real feel for your plant. So you'll know exactly when your plant is in need of water. For me, it's ideal because I keep my plant in the kitchen. So, I see it about 100 times a day. And whenever I go to the sink or whenever I go to get something from the fridge, I'm just always checking the surface and seeing the moisture level of the soil of my plant. I use a balanced orchid fertilizer when I fertilize my plants. I've noticed that Anthuriums really love fertilizer. It helps them to produce these beautiful flowers. So a nice balanced fertilizer is perfect. I prefer to use an orchid fertilizer because it's more geared for flowering. But yeah, I think any fertilizer would be fine for your plant. In the past, I've used liquid kelp or worm castings. I've also used fish emulsion, and all of those have been absolutely fine with our plants. And it really um, yielded results with beautiful leaves and beautiful flowers. If you don't want to use liquid fertilizers, which you put in water, you can also use slow release fertilizers, which you apply to the top of the soil and they will leach into the soil as you water your plant over time. The great thing about using those fertilizers is that they can be applied once every 6 months or so. So you don't need to, it's not something that needs to be applied constantly. So if you are a bit of a forgetful indoor gardener, those might be a better option for you. The next thing I want to talk about is humidity, because anthuriums are tropical plants and they generally love humidity. I've noticed that the Anthurium androium not really that fast with humidity, so I think anything from like 40, 50% is would be good. Otherwise, you could get brown tips on the leaves. But in saying that, this Anthurium is not as humidity sensitive than some of the other foliage Anthuriums, like the crystallinum or the magnificum. The best way to increase humidity around your plant would be with a humidifier that you can also set in the timer, and it will just put humidity into the air around your plant on a constant basis. And the key is really in that consistency over time, because you want to create a nice, pleasant growing environment for your plant. But unless you live in a very dry climate, or unless you have indoor heat sources, like average room humidity should be fine for your plant. So the only pests and diseases I've ever noticed on my anthuriums have been scale and some spider mites, but not a big issue like with alocasias. But I think generally anthuriums are pretty pest resistant, especially the Anthurium androiums that you buy at the grocery store, because these plants have been bred and hybridized so much that they've really become very resilient to pests. Of course, if you notice anything on your plant, it's best to apply a systemic fertilizer as soon as possible. You can also use neem oil and spray that as a preventative spray. It really helps to discourage pests on your plant. On another note, I will also like to say that if you keep your plant clean, so if you keep the leaves dust free, and you make sure that your plant is not pruned, but that you take off any dry flowers or leaves, it will also go a long way to discouraging pests to rest on your plant and to start an infestation. Because pests really love dusty, dirty, dry leaves. It makes it very easy for them to get a hold of your plant. I often just place my plant in the shower and I allow the water to just run over it and remove all the dust and the gunk. And also gives me a chance to flush out the pot, so to get rid of any excess salts that have collected in the pot due to the fertilizers that I use. So propagating anthuriums are really, really easy. They propagate readily through stem cuttings. I'll actually put a video up above of a previous propagation video that I did where I explained the process. But generally all that you want to do is to just take a piece of stem that has some aerial roots on it, and you just snip it off and place it in a glass of water and treat it like any other cutting that you might have used in the past. So when it comes to soil, anthuriums love to have well-draining soil. So anything that has lots of milled orchid bark or perlite in it would be really, really good to give that drainage. They don't like the roots to be compact for a very long time, or at all really, because they love to have air circulation around the roots. So when you buy a potting mix for your anthuriums, you want to choose something that has been mixed for philodendrons or any other aeroid, where you'll have nice chunky pieces of material in the mix. You can also make your own mix. I will put a video above of the mix that I make up myself, and yeah, it's very, very cost effective, and you should better to mix up your own medium than to buy something, because some of these mediums that you buy can be really expensive. And yeah, it just works out cheaper if you buy all the parts yourself and you can mix it at your leisure. If you like this video, please make sure to also check out the playlist I did a while ago on how I care for my anthuriums. It's an Anthurium FAQ playlist, and I tackle individual issues like browning leaves or yellowing leaves, humidity, propagation, repotting, any questions that you might have on how to care for your Anthurium. I hope that you like this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.